Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The Crestwood High School, perched on a verdant hill, was one of those modern establishments whose glass and steel architecture seemed to scream success from every corner. The corridors, wide and flooded with natural light, reflected the constant coming and going of students on the impeccably polished floors. The gray metal lockers, perfectly aligned, glittered under the fluorescent lights like the keyboards of a well-tuned piano. The air hung with the smell of fresh wax and the perfumes of teenagers in a hurry. That morning was the start of the second semester, and as always, the students, joyful, excited, overexcited, filled the space with their voices, their jokes, their nervous or arrogant laughter. An ordinary morning. Until his arrival. A silence fell, discreet at first, then thicker, like an electric shock in the air. Conversations slowed, glances turned, murmurs became whispers. She had just entered. Jade Robinson, a straight silhouette, a controlled gait. Dressed simply, dark jeans, a slightly worn khaki jacket, black sneakers with no logo. She carried a canvas bag over one shoulder, not a designer bag, not an accessory to make a statement. Nothing frivolous. Just the essentials. But what caught the eye was neither his clothes nor his discreet appearance. It was his eyes, a dark, direct, deep, almost impenetrable gaze. She observed everything, the posters on the wall, the groups of loud laughter, the quick glances people gave her thinking she wouldn't see them. She saw everything. No one knew where she was really from. The paperwork said, transferred from New Orleans. But the truth, far more complex, didn't fit into a single line of paperwork. Jade had been to 6 schools in 5 years, 3 different states, and 2 middle-of-the-night evacuations. She had slept in military shelters and walked through cities rocked by riots. Her mother, Captain Robin Robinson, a former Special Forces soldier, had never taught him how to run. She had taught him how to stand up straight. How to read a room in a second. How to survive. How to fight back. Since childhood, Jade trained in the shadows. Boxing, Krav Maga, tactical self-defense, combat meditation. She knew fear, but she never let it speak for her. She sought neither admiration nor confrontation. Only peace. But Crestwood, despite its glittering hallways and progressive speeches, was a jungle. And Jade was soon to find out. Or rather, them were going to discover it. Because among the students, there was a pack. At their head, Alyssa Monroe, the undisputed queen of the school. Platinum blonde, ice blue eyes, always made up with a seemingly timed perfection, Alyssa knew everything there was to know about manipulating the social world of a high school. The daughter of a local media mogul, she had grown up with the idea that the world revolved around her. And she made sure it did. Her trio of faithful followers followed her like a golden shadow. Tiffany, with a sour smile, always the first to humiliate before laughing out loud. Maya, a budding influencer, constantly seeking viral content, especially if it involved the suffering of others. Brooke, the quietest, but the most physical, the one who imposed fear with her empty gaze and her athletic shoulders. At Crestwood, the arrival of a new student was always an event, a new target, a new test of territory. And this silent Jade, who never looked down, instantly became their obsession. She didn't laugh at their jokes. She didn't ask where the library was. She wasn't trying to please. And that was unforgivable. But what neither Alyssa nor her gang knew was that this time, they had chosen the bad new. Because beneath Jade Robinson's calm exterior, behind that quiet gaze and humble posture, hid a brutal fighter. And she wasn't running away from war. She had already experienced it. The metallic clang of Jade's tray on the table echoed strangely through the large cafeteria. Conversations continued, but glances flocked in like a collective reflex. Jade Robinson, brand new, sat alone. At an empty table, in the center. A seat no one usually dared occupy, within sight of all the school's cliques. Neutral yet symbolic territory. But Jade didn't know that. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. She calmly unwrapped her sandwich, carefully wrapped in aluminum foil. Whole grain bread, grilled chicken, a leaf of fresh lettuce. Simple. Homemade. Nothing industrial. Nothing machine-bought. She took a bite, her eyes fixed on her book open in front of her, a collection of poems by Maya Angelou, yellowed, annotated in the margin by hand. But around her, the murmur swelled. Muffled laughter. Glances exchanged between the tables. And at the back, a group stood up. Alyssa Monroe, looking triumphant, crossed the room as if she were entering a podium. Her laughter rang like a poisonous bell. Tiffany was to her right, already armed with cutting remarks. Maya discreetly took out her phone, ready to film the moment. Brooke, arms crossed, walked like a moving brick. They surrounded Jade's table. Alyssa tilted her head in mock concern, a smirk playing on her peach-colored lips. "You've got the wrong table, haven't you? We don't sit alone here. It's sad." Tiffany approached, tilted her head slightly, mocking. "Maybe she doesn't have any friends in her home country." A burst of laughter followed. Maya was already filming, zooming in on Jade's impassive face. But Jade didn't move. She calmly raised her eyes. Her gaze pierced Alyssa like a cold blade. No anger. No fear. Just an unfathomable calm. Her gaze seemed to say, "You are not a danger to me. You are a noise." This silence, heavy, assertive, unsettled them. They weren't used to it. Alyssa frowned slightly, her pride stung. She grabbed Jade's sandwich without warning and threw it to the floor with a sharp, almost theatrical gesture. "There. Now you can really be alone." The food splattered, releasing a faint scent of balsamic vinegar. Jade looked down at the sandwich, then back up. Still wordless. No tears. No pleading. Not even outrage. Just this silence. This icy calm. And that's what irritated them the most. Tiffany waited for a scream. Maya hoped for a filmable reaction. Alyssa wanted an apology. But Jade wasn't giving anything away. And this refusal to play their game, was unbearable. So Brooke took action. She abruptly approached, placed her hand on Jade's shoulder, and tried to tip her backward onto the bench. This was a monumental mistake. Everything happened in a fraction of a second, like a clear break in the normal course of things. Brooke's arm shot forward, brutal and confident, toward Jade's shoulder, but it never had time to touch her. With a swift movement, Jade pivoted slightly to the side, intercepting the outstretched wrist with disconcerting fluidity. Her hand closed around the joint like a steel clamp, precise, controlled, silent. Brooke didn't have time to understand. Her body was thrown off balance, pulled downward in a perfectly calculated circular motion. With two smooth, effortless steps, Jade bent her knee, palm pressed against the cold cafeteria floor. Her right leg slid back, stabilizing her weight while her left arm held Brooke's at a tense angle that paralyzed her. Not a cry of rage. Not a sound of typing. Just a mechanic surgery. And silence, true silence, the one who falls like a lead weight, the one whom even breaths dare not disturb. The trays stopped sliding. Conversations froze. Laughter died as if someone had cut the power. Then the pain did its work. Ouch. You're hurting me. Let me go. Brooke, the bully on the court, the tough guy of the group, the basketball warrior, found herself on the ground, humiliated. Her cries of pain echoed off the walls. Her usually hard gaze was clouded with panic. But Jade Wascom, not an ounce of agitation in his gestures. Not a trace of gratuitous violence. Just a cold, almost military efficiency. And then, without rushing, she released the pressure. Gently. As if she wanted to make sure Brooke didn't fall any lower than she already was. Brooke crawled back under the incredulous gaze of her classmates. Her face flushed, her breathing ragged. She tried to stand up proudly, but her legs were shaking. Jade, for her part, straightened up without a sound. Smoothed out the wrinkles in her jacket. Then looked up at Alyssa. Their eyes met. And in that simple silent exchange, Alyssa understood. She realized this girl wasn't an ordinary threat. Not some weird newbie. Not a lost girl to be dominated. But a contained storm. A living weapon. Jade didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply says, "I'm not looking for trouble. But I don't run away from it either." His voice was calm. Deep. Unbroken. The words fell like stones in still water. Then she looked down at her sandwich, shattered on the tile floor. Crumbs, a bit of sauce, a piece of tomato slipped out of the bread. She bent down and picked up the remains. She showed neither disgust nor sadness. Just an almost meditative concentration. She walked over to the trash can, calmly threw everything away, turned around, and out from the cafeteria. Not a single student moved. Even the invigilators stood frozen, witnessing something they hadn't seen coming. A scene no one could truly believe. An inconvenient truth. And then, something invisible was triggered. Phones came out. Videos circulated. Whispers ignited. Within minutes, the name Jade Robinson was on everyone's lips. "Did you see the new girl? She knocked Brooke down. She's a ninja, seriously. She didn't even scream. She didn't even bat an eyelid. She folded it like origami." Alyssa didn't even know what to say. Who is this girl? The high school crisis didn't slow down. It swelled. Spread like wildfire. In classrooms. In hallways. In private messages. In Snapchat groups. A blurry video was already circulating with a headline. The news that broke the circle of Crestwood Queens. That day, without wanting to, without looking for it, Jade Robinson had just overturned the balance of power in high school. And she had only done it with 2 fingers and a look. The next morning, the atmosphere at school was different. Not for everyone, the hallways still echoed with chatter, ringing cell phones, and superficial conversations, but for Exit, each step was heavier, each look heavier. The video had spread like wildfire. Jade knew it. She hadn't watched it, but she'd felt the whispers behind her back, the awkward silences as she passed, the admiring winks from some of the boys, and most of all, the Lucas Alyssas down the hall. When she got to her locker, something made her stop in her tracks. The stripes. Deep, wild gashes, carved with a metal object. Zigzag scratches, nervous, disordered. And, taped to the twisted door, a handwritten note on a torn sheet of notebook paper. "We're not afraid of you. You'll regret it." Jade didn't react right away. She looked at the note, read it once, twice. Folded it neatly. Slipped it into the inside pocket of her jacket. Then, without a word, she opened her now rickety locker, retrieved her things, closed it, and walked away. No shouting. No complaints. But in his gaze, an icy determination was reborn. Evening was slowly falling on the quieter parts of town. Jade's house was modest but sturdy, set back from a quiet street. It was barely lit from the inside, except for the garage, whose white light pierced the gloom. Inside, Jade was moving. Not to let off steam. To refocus. Jump rope in hand, she performed rapid, steady sets without pause. The rhythmic sound of the rope hitting the concrete floor echoed through the enclosed space. Her breathing was controlled. Her forehead glistened, but her gaze remained fixed and determined. Then she stopped dead. Rolled her shoulders. Kneeled down, put her fists on the ground, and began the pumps. 50. Then 60. Then 70. At the 72nd, she slowed down, winced, then started again. She wasn't counting the repetitions. She was counting the control. Finally, she stood up, pulled a strip of cloth around her wrists, and approached the punching bag suspended from the ceiling, an old relic from her mother's military past. The leather stitching was worn, but strong. She gave it a fist bump, like a sparring partner. And struck. Not violently, precisely. Sequences: jab, hook, uppercut, dodge. Again. Again. Her legs pivoted smoothly, her arms followed the rhythm of a choreography she knew by heart. It was from these movements that Jade drew her strength. Not to destroy. To stand. There was a creak. The door opened. A figure appeared in the doorway. His mother. Robin Robinson. Straight-set, in a military dressing gown, her hair braided back, a steaming mug in her hand. She advanced slowly, observed without speaking. She knew this silence. She had seen it before the missions. Before the clashes. A half-smile played on his lips. They were looking for you, huh? Jade didn't stop knocking. But her voice answered, calm, without rage. Yes. A pause. Her mother approached, placed the mug on the workbench, and watched the bag swing under her daughter's precise strokes. Then she added, calmly. Then show them why it wasn't a good idea. But do it your way. Not someone else's. Not with hatred. With control. Jade stopped. She wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist. Her gaze met her mother's. I don't want to become what they are. And that's exactly why you're stronger than them. His mother approached. She handed him the clean gauze bandage. But sometimes, Jade, for peace to exist, some people have to be capable of waging war. A silence. Jade clutched the tape in her hand. Not as a weapon. As a symbol. She nodded. Then I will fight. But in my own way. And she resumed training. Faster. Sharper. Each blow echoed through the garage like a promise. No revenge. Of limits. Of respect. Of identity. Friday night, the Crestwood High School gymnasium was buzzing with energy. It was the big mid-semester party, an annual event with a DJ, light shows, a sweet buffet, and specially designed outfits. Students danced under the spotlights, in a teenage euphoria amplified by the bass. Laughter erupted, camera flashes popped. It was a party, and for the most part, everything was going well. More behind the stands, in the shadows barely lit by the flashing neon lights, something else was going on. Alyssa Monroe, hair tied up in a perfect bun, tight red dress, was there. With Tiffany, in a tight black jumpsuit, Maya, phone in hand ready to film, Anne Brooke, leather jacket, closed eyes. They had trapped Jade's phone while she was charging it in the staff room earlier in the day. Thanks to a hastily installed app, they had sent her a fake message, your mother is outside. She's waiting for you urgently. Jade was clever. But they thought they were even more so. They were waiting for him, sure of their staging, certain that once isolated, they could humiliate him, and this time, movie's essay shoot. Exit arrived in the shadows, as expected. Except something was immediately wrong. There was nothing anxious about his gait. Nothing hurried. Nothing hesitant. She walked straight. Conscious, prepared. When she stopped in front of them, Alyssa took a step forward, her lips pursed. You want to play tough, huh? Her voice vibrated with a mixture of anger, repressed fear, and wounded pride. She didn't like losing control. Tonight, she wanted take-back power. Record Jade begging. Publicly crush her. But Jade didn't answer. She looked around at the four girls. The party lights behind them cast strange shadows on their faces. The shouts of joy in the distance seemed to come from another world. She gently raised her hands, open palms. I came. But I didn't come alone. What? Brooke groaned. Jade went out his phone, held it out to the sky. A discreet red light was flashing. Everything's been filmed. For 2 minutes. Directly to the cloud. The girls froze. The news hit them like a slap in the face. But Tiffany, always quick to act without thinking, charged ahead anyway. She tried a kick, poorly executed. Jade dodged it gracefully. A half pivot, then she slid behind her and placed one leg down-balanced Tiffany. The girl fell heavily to the ground, her heels clicking on the concrete. Maya screamed, went out a little candy pink pepper spray from his clutch. But barely had his arm raised, Jade approached with a quick step, grabbed his wrist, and dropped the object to the ground with a controlled gesture. Maya stepped back, her eyes wide, helpless both literally and figuratively. Brooke then tried to grab Jade from behind, but Jade anticipates it. She grabbed his elbow, pivoted on her axis and made her fall forward, deliberately breaking her fall to avoid serious injury. Brooke groaned, stunned. And finally Alyssa. Furious. Humiliated. Hysterical. She grabbed a hard plastic bottle, half-filled, and raised it above his head. Jade didn't move. But as soon as Alyssa's arm shot out towards her, Jade caught the wrist in mid-air, redirected it, and with a fluid movement, disarmed Alyssa and tripped her back, without hurting her, but making her look ridiculous. Alyssa collapsed, dress crumpled, hair disheveled, heel broken. And there, the head supervisor, Mr. Harrison, arrived running, alerted by the shouts, the sounds of struggle, and the videos that several students nearby had already started filming. He saw the 4 girls on the ground. An exit, straight, barely out of breath, sitting on the steps of the bleachers, holding her phone, still on, camera pointed at them. She looked at him calmly. Everything is filmed. I didn't attack anyone. I defended myself. She swiveled the screen towards him. The recording clearly showed the attempted coup, the spray attack, Jade's gestures, quick, precise, but never offensive. The supervisor said nothing for a few seconds. Then, in a serious tone. Follow me. We'll call management. Jade nodded, without resistance. But behind them, the whispers had already begun to topple in the crowd. And that evening, the video did not need to be edited to go viral. We experience everything there. Calm. Control. The elegance of combat. And 4 girls, once feared, sprawled on the ground by one they had underestimated. In the early morning, before the sun has even finished rising, the video was already circulating everywhere. First on the school's private messaging. Then on student groups, then on TikTok, Instagram, Snap. Even former Crestwood students were already commenting on it. Is she the new one? She handled them. Easy. In a few hours, the name of Jade Robinson was uttered in every hallway, at every break, on every bench. But this time, it wasn't with mockery or suspicion that it was with admiration. The roles had been reversed. Those who, a few days earlier, had sniggered behind his back or looked away, were now watching him with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and caution. Some of the younger students followed her with their eyes as if watching a legend being formed. Others approached her discreetly to slip her a thanks, or ask him how she learned to do that. But Jade, true to herself, did not seek the light. She remained calm. Discreet. Her headphones on her ears, her bag on one shoulder, her gaze calm, but now loaded with meaning. It was no longer the look of a stranger. It was that of a presence. A few days later, the director of Crestwood, Mrs. Wheeler, a strict-looking but lively-eyed woman, summoned Jade into her office. Sitting behind her large, varnished wooden desk, she gave him a long look before speaking. What you did, is not what I encourage. But I understand. You acted with restraint, with intelligence. And above all, you inspired far more than you realize. She paused. I'd like you to speak in front of the school. At Friday's assembly. Not to glorify what happened. But so that others can hear your voice. Jade hesitated. Speaking in front of everyone wasn't what she had planned. But something inside her, a sense of commitment, of duty, took over. What she had experienced wasn't just for her. It was necessary for others to understand. She accepted. The following Friday, the entire school gathered in the gymnasium. More than 500 students gathered on the bleachers. At the back, the teachers. On stage, a microphone. Soft lighting. And an unusual silence. When Jade stepped onto the stage, a wave rippled through the room. She wore simple jeans, a black shirt, and nothing artificial. No attempt to impress. She stood straight. Not stiff. Simply grounded. She looked at the crowd. The faces. The laughing elders. The curious ones. The discreet ones. And the silent wounded. Then she spoke. I'm not here to become a hero. Nor to be applauded. I didn't come to this school to fight. But sometimes you don't have a choice. Her voice was clear. Calm. Determined. Sometimes you have to know how to say no. No to intimidation. No to humiliation. And above all, no to silence. I was taught to defend myself. Not with violence. But with control. With self-respect. She stopped. The silence in the gym had become intense. No noise. No whispering. Just listening. What I did it because I was pushed to the limit. But what I want is for you to know that you all have the right to get back up. Not with fists. But with courage. The real kind. The kind that no longer keeps silent. And to defend those who do not have the strength to do so. She thanked him, bowed slightly, and left the stage in solemn silence. Then the applause began. First timid. Then powerful. Then standing. It was more than a standing ovation. It was a relief. A recognition. A change. Alyssa Monroe was suspended indefinitely. His parents, influential and used to controlling everything, tried to minimize the facts, even threatening to take legal action against the school. But this time, public opinion had spoken. The video. The testimonies. Jade's words. Everything formed a wall that nothing could break down. Not even money. Students began to share their own experiences of bullying, naming what they had kept quiet about for months, sometimes years. Posters appeared in the corridors. It wasn't Jade who changed Crestwood. It is we who have decided to stop being silent. Since that day, Jade Robinson continues to walk the halls of Crestwood. Same gait. Same calm. Same straight gaze. But the outlook has changed. So have the dynamics. Those who ignored her now greet her. Those who feared her respect her. And those who admired her, finally found in her a figure. Not a movie heroine. A real one. A girl who was taken for prey. And who, in silence, proved that she was a quiet force.